Says we're live. I should probably put some light on my face.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, my bright shining post-work face. Gotta love it. But yeah, I actually brought over like a couple of my Daredevil trades. One of which I think season 3 was pretty heavily inspired by. Like they didn't take super heavily from it, but you know, yeah, they didn't take super heavily from it, but there's clear influence from this title. I'll probably bring it up during the conversation.
Sweet, dude. Like I'm down for that because I actually was really curious, like where they were pulling stuff. Because there was some stuff that I was familiar with, like oh, this is from this run, or this is from that run, or that issue, or whatever. I was familiar with it enough to know that. I mean, because I should probably save this for when we actually start. But when Kingpin knows who Daredevil is, I was just like, I know exactly where that's from. So I mean, I'd like to see where else you've got, like what else has been pulled from that.
Yeah, right. Cool. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of, and it was nothing super major, but I'm sure we'll get into that. Seems like we have a couple people in the chat. I'll just give them quick shout outs. We have Comic Man Jake and Kelvin Rivera. What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'll intro us up so we can get this conversation started. Seems like we've been like on the precipice. So, hey guys, welcome to the 13th episode of Let's Talk Comics, where myself and another co-host in the comic book community discuss one of the many facets of the storytelling medium that is comics. Whether it be stories, creators, constructs, or adaptations, we hit it all. What's really cool about this week, for the first time on Let's Talk Comics, we're doing an adaptation. And by that, we mean specifically, as you can tell by the title and by the thumbnail, we're talking Marvel Netflix's Daredevil, more specifically season 3. For this special episode, we have a special guest for the first time appearing on our channel, Ryan from Nerdy Blurb. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like this has been such a long time coming.
Dude, I appreciate it. And you said that when we had you on our show, which we're super grateful to have you on the show. It was a great time to sit down with you and talk comics. Now it's a great time to be able to sit down and talk about Daredevil, specifically season 3, even though all 3 seasons, in my opinion, are phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So do you want to real quick just let the good people in the chat, let the great viewers out on the interwebs know what you and Nerdy Blurb are all about?
Yeah, man. So what's up, peeps of the interwebs? I'm Ryan from NerdyBlurbTV. Me and my brother head a channel that focuses on mostly all the nerdy things, but ironically enough, we seem to only talk about movies, and that's about it. And a lot of them have had to do with comic books, or at least comic book adaptations. So it's really fitting to have us here on DarkKnightNation's channel. Really appreciate it. I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to movies or just pretty much anything in general. So I'm glad to actually sit down and talk about something that recently happened, which is Daredevil season 3 and the whole, I want to say controversy with that. I don't know. Let's see what Dark Knight thinks.
No, I guess you can call it a controversy. It's definitely it's like a freaking pulp novel. Like everybody wants to know what the hell happened, why it happened. So I guess that controversy would be apt for term.
All right.
But yeah, if you guys aren't already, there's a link to Nerdy Blurb and Ryan's channel in the description below. Make sure to go check them out. We've actually done a really fun collaboration with them well, it just aired. We did the collaboration a little while ago, and it was regarding like superheroes and their place in comic books and in storytelling. And he does talk a lot about movies pertaining to comic book stories. Obviously, those are some of the biggest box office grossing movies. And in my opinion, and Ryan's expressed similar views, they're some of the best movies coming out right now. So make sure you guys go check them out. A lot of really great content. And we, always look forward to collaborating back and forth. So you'll see my ugly mug on his channel and his lovely visage on my channel.
That's hilarious. Yeah, go check us out. We would appreciate it. I mean, everybody is welcome. Even though it's a lot of just I don't know, amateurs trying to pretend like they know what they're doing. But I will say this shameless plug. Me and my boy Comic Man Jake, shout out to my boy out there in Michigan. We did a collaboration that's going to be airing tomorrow about DC and their cinematic universe and why it sucks. So tune in for that because I'd love to hear what everybody thinks about that.
Oh yeah, definitely make sure to go check him out. And just to let you guys know, like this guy's production value is fucking nuts good, like really fucking good. That was like when him and I first got in contact, he had like commented on one of my videos, and I clicked on his thing. I was like, fuck. Also, if you guys want like a pure dose of iconicism, make sure you check out the Shug Show on his channel, SHUG. By far the best intro to a YouTube channel or show ever. So good.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that big time. Thank you so much.
Oh man, of course. I'm always there to support good content, and that's what you guys churn out. But enough of our little cross-country bromance. I guess we should get into the topic of conversation. That is Daredevil season 3. And instead of doing a poll of the week this week like we normally do, we can still call it the poll of the week. So the question is for you, Ryan, and for everybody in the chat, out of the 3 seasons of Daredevil, what's your favorite? Because it seems pretty divisive. You know what I mean? For me personally, I might have to go with season 1. I really, really dug season 3, and I'm kind of in the middle of rewatching it again just to cement my opinion even more, to get a little bit more than just like the basal reactions. You know, now I know what's happening and I can pay attention to the different perspectives of other characters. Like right now, if you guys have watched season 3, I'm trying to watch more from this perspective of Ray Nadeem, who's the FBI agent, because I find him as a character really, really interesting. So instead of just watching it for story, I'm watching it from his perspective, and I feel like I've gained a lot from it. But season 1 for me, I think, is really spectacular. A, because you're building this universe from scratch. It was the first Marvel Netflix show ever. So not only are they building a world around Daredevil, they are starting the building blocks for the Defenders, for Jessica Jones, and they're doing it off of the heel of Avengers. They've mentioned Avengers and the attack on New York City. But I think that like the first season of Daredevil is near flawless for a first season. It sets everything up. You meet these characters, you get to love some characters, you get to hate some characters. I think it's fantastic. And I am a sucker. I mean, I'm a Batman fan, so I'm a sucker for pulpy noir crime drama. But Ryan, what about you? What's your favorite season of Daredevil?
Dude, I am with you wholeheartedly. When it comes to picking my favorite, I'm going to put a pin in that and go back to something you actually said earlier. And that was that you love Nadir's character. That's something I really like about you and what you do on your channel, is that and on the show that you collaborated with me on our channel, is that you challenged everybody on that episode to read a comic book and see it from that character's perspective, whatever character it is. And to follow up with you on that challenge, like that's definitely changed a lot of my perspective about comic books, about the characters within them and everything. And I think it's really cool to talk about Nadir, because when he showed up in season 3, I was like, who the freak is this guy?
Right.
Like it was just so random, and it was just like, and it wanted us to care about him so quickly. Like we saw him at his job. He was getting crapped on at his job. He was getting crapped on at his home. He didn't have enough money, so on and so forth. And I was just like, who the freak is this guy, and why do I like him so much already? And I think that's why season 3 was just so phenomenal. Is it my favorite? It's so hard to answer that question, because in my eyes, honestly, I don't see Daredevil as a divided thing. I can't look at it and be like, well, this one's better than the other, because they all fed into each other so well. It's almost as if it's the perfect masterpiece. I haven't seen anything so well done since Breaking Bad, and that movie, that TV show is phenomenal. It's the highest there is. And Daredevil, the 3 seasons that we do have of it's almost as if it's its own whole saga in itself, because I can't seem to pull out. There's so many moments in each of the seasons where I was just like, that's my favorite, or that one's my favorite, but it's not one in a whole. Was I grabbed from the very beginning of season 1? Absolutely. I didn't get any freaking homework done at all that entire semester when that aired out on Netflix. In fact, I was supposed to be taking a midterm at the time, and I was just like, I just can't right now. Like, I was too wired, and I had to watch like whatever episode it was, and it was just so hard. And I think that's what like the beginning ones, the beginning seasons are supposed to do. So it did it so well. And then the second season just kind of flipped everything on its head. And then the third one tied everything up in a bow. I can't give you my answer, but I will say that I absolutely loved the character development that Murdoch had in the third season.
Oh man, that for me. So I have a very, very like loving relationship with the Daredevil character. He actually is like a contender for my favorite Marvel character ever, because when I was a kid, I grew up. So I know some people know me like on a personal level, some don't. When I was a kid, there was this. I don't think it was called The Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know what it was called. It might have just been this. I don't know. It was a Spider-Man TV series that like was airing in the early 2000s, and that's when I was a kid. And that was my first. I was like a Spider-Man Batman kid, like everybody else. And so on that show, like Daredevil was a reoccurring character. And I was like, wow. Like I loved him. I grew up loving him. And I was raised Catholic, right? I went to Catholic school for like 6-7 years. I was an altar boy for quite a while. And so for me to have a character to theologically identify with, I was like, that's great. Not to mention, like, he's essentially like one of the many Batman, kind of quote unquote knockoffs. And I was a Batman fan. So I was like, oh, wow, like this is a blind Catholic Batman. I'm all for it. And so growing up, I was a fan of Daredevil. And then when the show came out, right, to kind of right the wrongs of the 2003 film, and it did that and more, I was psyched. I like this. And just going back and tying it into what you were saying about the development for Matt and the struggle that he faces in this season more than any other, like on a physical level, we'll get into that, but emotionally, finding some sort of solace in his faith, like that shakes him to his core, because all of his life, through him becoming blind, through his father dying, through the death of Elektra, like the first time, through losing through losing like and breaking off relationships, the one thing that was consistent was his faith in God. And so what happens when that's gone?
There's nothing left.
Is there a Matt Murdock? That's the real question. And they tackle the question that's more nearly tied into the Batman character, but in a much, I would even beg to say, a more complex way. Who's real Matt Murdock or Daredevil? Because season 2, he's ready to throw away Daredevil to be Matt Murdock. Season 3, he throws away Matt Murdock to be Daredevil. And both of them make very convincing arguments.
See, and I'm getting like goosebumps right now, just because of the final scene that we see in season 3 of Murdoch confronting Kingpin, and he takes his mask off. Oh my gosh, I'm getting cold chills right now. It's goosebumps right now. Freaking A, because that was literally him saying, there is no more Daredevil, and it's only me, and it's always been me the whole time. And whether that road was a hard road for him to go down and find his destination, yeah, it was. But the thing is that he got there, and that's what those 3 seasons gave us. And I like how you call him the blind Marvel Batman, because it really is gritty, and it should have always been gritty from the very beginning in 2003 even. And it's really weird to think that Jon Favreau actually had something to do with that movie, because he's the one who gave us Iron Man and so many other things actually when it comes to Disney stuff. But like they did a character who I was wary about, because not only was I not really familiar with him back in 2003, but like they didn't do a good job, and for them to pull it back. In fact, when they announced it, when Netflix announced Daredevil, I think that's when I actually started taking Netflix serious. I don't know. I think that's when I actually started paying for a subscription for myself
Yeah.
instead of like piggybacking on other people. But I'm pretty sure that was when it just felt right. It was just like, yeah, this character needs to be done justice, even though I have no opinion on him or whatever because of me not being a huge fanboy or not, but like it just felt like a right time because so much has changed since 2003, and I think that it fit so well, and for them to hit on the thematic um, issues that they did and the ones that you talked about that were so layered, I thought was not only something that was needed in cinema, but it was needed within the community of the like nerd culture in general, because like a lot of us really needed to see justice be done to characters we love.
No, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Look at how Batman was treated, you know, post 1989 Batman film with Tim Burton, really well received. And then, you know, over the course of the next couple of years, up until we got, you know, Batman Begins, we had Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and they were jokes. So, you know, at the time I was young. So as a kid, I don't think I hated either of them. In fact, like I loved George Clooney as Batman for, you know, until I became a functioning adult. Um,
Do those words taste bad in your mouth now?
oh, dude, if I wasn't drowning in coffee right now, I'm sure they would taste fucking terrible. But you know, so I grew up watching that, and then you know, I go back and watch it, and it was like, wow, I need something a little bit stronger than coffee to make this feel any decent. But you know, it was just this experience for me, like growing up, and then Batman finally gets that redemption. I mean, Daredevil probably wasn't dragged through the mud as much as Batman one was, but you know, we finally got it. We like this show, like is and we'll get into the cancellation later and speculation of what we think is going to happen. But if
Right.
this were to end, yes, I'm really freaking sad. And when I first heard the news, I was almost depressed. But at least it goes out with like not a fucking blemish to its name. Sure, there were things that I didn't love, but if this was the only bit of Daredevil we got for a long time, at least we went out on a high note. We started on a high note, and we fucking took the journey on a high note. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned Batman. Not necessarily the Batmans that I was thinking of, but let's draw some parallels here. We have three, in my opinion, three perfect seasons of Daredevil. Um, and you know what? Here's something I'd like to touch on before I go a little bit deeper. So many people outside, and I'm not even the biggest or was the biggest Daredevil fanboy, like I said earlier, but so many people, it was such a shift in comic book, movie, TV kind of stuff. It was such a huge shift, especially for Marvel, when DC was throwing out all that darker kind of feel with Batman versus Superman and all that kind of stuff. But like so many people were not on board at first because it was just so different. But I think that says so much about it, that it was so willing to go in a different direction, to take risks, and not only so, to stick with it. And you never see that in Hollywood anymore. You always see them crumble at the first sign of trouble. They crumble like a freaking piece of paper. Uh,
At Warner Brothers.
yeah, and it was so refreshing to see that, because it was a fresh thing to see, a dark Marvel universe almost in itself, even though it's a shared universe, which we'll talk about later. But like it was connected to Marvel, and from what we know is Guardians of the Galaxy with fart jokes and freaking like Thor and outside of his element and all that kind of stuff, which is great in its own merit. But like for them to try something different, even though the TV team and the movie team are two separate ones completely. Like none of the TV decisions affect anything about the cinematic decisions or anything like that. But like they were willing to make their own, that to have their own identity. So going into Batman, it's so great to see that Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight saga do the same exact thing. That's why I think we love Daredevil so much, is because it was willing to do what we all loved in the Dark Knight saga, and that is take the character serious, be real about it, but also have a like good story with it.
Oh yeah.
And they did all of those things. And to compare like Daredevil to Batman is just, not only is it ingenious, but I think it's intentional because they knew that it worked.
Yeah, and you know what the interesting thing is, and I don't want to go, I'm not going to go too far into depth about Warner Brothers. You know, that one of the biggest complaints about, like, for example, BVS and a number of the other, and Suicide Squad and whatever, is that it's too dark. And I will sit there and raise you the entire Dark Knight trilogy and say, this movie was dark, bleak, depressing, and ultimately a really pessimistic view of the world. This was one of the best movies ever made, or one of the best series of movies ever made. And it's not like, and it's not a slight on that because it's dark. BVS, Suicide Squad, and a number of the other DC EU movies besides Wonder Woman were bad because they were just poorly done. Like Suicide Squad, for example. Suicide Squad was bad actually because they tried to shoehorn way too much levity in way too small of an amount of time, because they gave the director, who also wrote the script, 6 weeks to write a goddamn movie script. And then it's because they're letting their CEOs get far too involved in the storytelling, whereas the Marvel Netflix shells out the money. Marvel lets their creatives get on top of it, and they're like, you do your thing. And they put the right writers in there that know the characters. I mean, a good majority of the people working on Daredevil, surprise, they worked on comic books. And here's the thing. I will never be the type to tell you that you need to put all comic book people on cinema, because storytelling in cinema is very different from storytelling in comic books. But you know what? It's important to have some level of balance, because the people who are doing the comic books, there's a reason they're praised. There's a reason you're taking this character and this intellectual property and adapting it to screen. I mean, look at the list of people that worked on Daredevil, guys like Christos Gage, who writes comic books. The executive producer, Jeff Loeb, is one of the most well-known comic book writers of all time. You know, wrote like Batman Long Halloween, one of the biggest, most popular Batman stories of all time. Batman Dark Victory. Batman Haunted Knight. Daredevil Yellow, which is seen as one of the best reiterations of Daredevil's origin story ever. Spider-Man Blue. Hulk Gray. And a number of the other Marvel colored series and a number of other titles. This guy knows the character. So you put him on as a producer where he has little to no impact in the structure of the story, but can tell you about the character, what to do with this character. And you know what's great is they took a lot of influence and one of the things I noticed was they took a lot of influence from European crime novels. So like noir. But so one of the things is, if you watch, for example, The Godfather, right? I just watched it. I just watched the first two for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and I fucking lost my mind. But here's the thing. Godfather pulls from Italian crime novels, where the central focus in a number of them is that there's corruption and crime rooted so fucking deep in society, you are literally wiping your ass with corruption. It's so,
you have no idea how long I've been wanting to talk about this.
And so you get into Daredevil, right? Tying this back into Daredevil, and it's all there. Not as much in season 2, but season 1 and 3 with the Kingpin. Like, let's like, this is where I'm going to get really heavy into the discussion, right? Season 3 of Daredevil, right? You know, based on the end of season 2, that Kingpin has built up a little bit of strength in prison. But at the beginning of season 3, because of Daredevil Defender's taking place in between, you almost forget that, and you're like, wow, like he's a little bit down on his luck, like he's not nearly as powerful as you think he is. And then middle of season 3, they're like, no, like he has never lost a step. This guy's known what he was doing the whole time, and he has had his fucking fingers rooted up everybody's ass in the city, even across the world. Like that, for me, like that took some very clear influence from The Godfather, and The Godfather taking that from like Italian crime novels during like the 18th, 19th, and 20th century. I think it's so like, for I don't know what, like for you, but like my reaction when, you know, you find out season 3 that this was all a plan, and that, you know, at the beginning when they foreshadowed that they didn't want to promote Ray Nadeem because he was having financial troubles and that makes him prime target, but the Kingpin had targeted him already. Like, what? It was so, like, that's so good, that foresight and that planning to craft that kind of narrative. I don't know, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, didn't see it coming, which was the point. And the thing is that I think not only that, is that I should have seen it coming, because we know what the Kingpin is capable of.
Right.
Second off, if anybody who is watching this video right now, if you have not seen The Godfather, please go and do yourself a favor and go and watch that with the perspective of what Dark Knight is talking about here, because you'll gain. Because I mean, it is an old movie, and it's, some people say it's dated, whatever, but it is extremely relevant. It's extremely relevant to the thematics that we're talking about right here, because I would even say that Daredevil is probably like very much based off of what The Godfather's given us, especially because it's just, I mean, is it the greatest of all time? The Godfather? Sure, for many different reasons. Is it everybody's favorite? No. But the thing is that I think it will gain a lot of give people a lot of perspective. Now, with that out of the way, is that I think that what they did when it comes to corruption, even in season 2, with the whole Irish crime and the wars with that and everything, it continues to show what kind of world that they are living in, but reminding us of a world that we also are safe from. Even though it's real, it's out there, but people who are sitting in their homes watching Netflix I mean, they're probably the ones who are not dealing with these kind of problems.
Well, also, just to interject and comment on that a little bit, one of the things that I actually find about it is it almost articulates the point that you're not safe. Because if we can think to put this in a fictional story, and the whole time you're like, holy shit, like this sounds like this could actually happen. You know, you really think to yourself, you really, really think about that. Like, this could happen. And it just so happens that they put it in a story. But why couldn't some incredibly intelligent, you know, I guess, like, to use dated vocabulary, ne'er-do-well think of the same thing and put the similar, you know, put like a similar motion into action.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it's almost a cautionary tale. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Continue.
No, that's very much where I was going with that, because it's those who are watching this in their homes, in the comfort of their homes with their wives or their husbands or their families or what have you. These are the people who are not dealing with this, and yet it's shedding light on, like, you need to figure out who you are so that other people can't get in at all, because it's extremely possible. And when, I mean, we're going to talk about spoilers here, right?
Yeah, fucking do it, man.
Okay, cool. When Nadir goes, dude, okay, I about pinched a loaf off in my pants when Nadir goes in to report everything, get it on tape and everything, tape recorder with the captain, and comes in to talk to, what is it, like the president? I can't remember like specifics of it, because it blew my mind and I lost like temporary memory for a moment, because when the other guy gets shot dead,
yeah,
and she was gonna frame him for the fact that he was just wilted. I lost it because yeah, the Kingpin's got his fingers in a lot of pies, but like you never see any of that kind of stuff happening. Like and that was not the real moment for me. It made it real for a character that I really loved. I knew that the Kingpin was capable after what we saw, but like it even shocked me to be like nobody is safe anymore.
Mhm. No,
It was awesome.
and the thing is, and I would even venture to say that Ray Nadeem was like one of my top 3 favorite characters this season.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that they develop an unknown character that doesn't exist in the comics to be, I mean, first off, he's relatable. He has these struggles and tribulations that any person can go through. And so
Right.
by the end of the season, when he starts experiencing these things that none of us are likely to experience, you're just like, holy, like you're following him because you're already engaged with that character. And then at the end, like realistically, you look at it, Ray Nadeem saved the day. It wasn't Daredevil. Like Daredevil's victory was a personal triumph, right? Because he shows restraint at the end, and we'll go into that. But it was Ray Nadeem that exposes Bullseye, which in turn exposes the king, which exposes the Kingpin at the end. And you know what? I love. There's so much symbolism in this season, man. I could talk about it for hours. Did you realize, like, so when you remember at the beginning of the season when he's trying to tell his kid, he's like, we're gonna have the pool in this summer. Like, you're finally
Mhm.
gonna have the pool. We can make this happen. And he's trying to kind of ward off any of the kids' suspicion that they're going through financial hardships. You realize, like, he died in the hole that they were digging for
In
the
the
pool.
pool,
And it's
bro.
like you realize, like, at the expense, and like he was going to get everything he wanted, and at the expense of everything he wanted, financial security and time with his family, he sacrificed himself. Like, that's so powerful because it's just this regular old guy where everything literally went from a huge downward spiral to an upward trend. Like, it's not like he had flatlined and spiked down. It was a roller coaster for Ray Nadeem, almost as much of it as it was a roller coaster for Matt Murdock. And like the fact that he goes from I can't even verbalize it. You know
You
what I
know
mean?
what's even crazy about like what you had been saying earlier about the Kingpin is that like this whole time none of us knew like how like first off well connected and second off how still connected he was in prison. Even going back into the second season when Punisher was put in prison, um and he had to ward off all those guys. Kingpin was there. I mean, he was talking to him because first off, we need to remember that he's still there. We need to remember that he's still a part of the Daredevil saga. But
Mhm.
like even he had power in there. But it's so crazy to almost think that the writers knew exactly what they were doing in writing because they showed that he didn't have all the power that he was capable of. We looked at him and was like, oh, he's the Kingpin of the prison. When really the entire time we find out in the third season, he's the Kingpin of the freaking world, dude.
Yeah.
And like, but to gain the parallel and symbolism with Nadir, the craziest part about it is that I left thinking that yeah, Kingpin is pretty like hot right now, but Nadir finished off as the Kingpin of righteousness. He was the one who connected everything at the end and was willing to do what the Kingpin wasn't willing to do, and that is sacrifice himself. And
Mhm.
it's the only thing he wasn't willing to do. He said it many times, but he couldn't in the end because his girlfriend or his money or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
In the end, Nadir was the one who was willing to connect everyone, no matter how small his connections were, connect everyone to what they needed to know and how they needed to know it, and then actually make himself as a sacrifice. And I think that was the true symbolism of righteous power and corrupt power.
No, you make an awesome point. And tying that back into Kingpin and looking at him and so you by the end of season 1 we think he lost, right?
Right.
And then season 3 you realized he that hasn't really lost a step at all. And so the thing that I love is, and you see this in season 1 about how this guy is physically, overbearing and powerful and almost undefeatable. Mentally, one of the smartest, if not the smartest man you will ever come up against.
Right.
And like season 1, you think he's really on top of his shit, but like season 3, this man went to prison and lost everything, and he's still 10 steps like ahead of everybody. Like when you think he lost, like he wanted you to think that, and at the same time, he's probably more powerful than ever. It's like sleight of hand. You know what I mean? Like he took the coin, and you think it's gone, but it's really in the other hand. Like, and so the thing that I love is that he really only has one big vulnerability, and that's his heart. Because he's not like a veteran of dealing with his emotions because of his childhood and his issues with his family and his kind of self-deferred isolation. And so I find it really, really, I guess, legitimate, you know what I mean, that no matter what, if you involve his love life, like that's where it all goes to shit. And I would be, if we ever get anything continuing this arc, I couldn't tell you the shitstorm that he would rain down if he ever lost Vanessa.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And to like reiterate, like he, I mean, in a sense, he is willing to sacrifice himself for his Vanessa, but I think it's all for a very selfish reason, because like she was the only thing that was good in his life, and he wanted to keep that. And it wasn't, I mean, he wanted to shield her so much, but like in the end, it was all for his own desires. And that's what I think. First off, I think it's really interesting what they had done is to give the villain a heart, which I think way cool. Haven't seen that very often done right. But like for him to be such a tortured soul and have such a laser focus, but it be blind by love, I think is like really, really cool. But like for me, it was just, it was just counterfeit in my, I mean, first off, we haven't even mentioned this, but Vincent D'Onofrio is probably the greatest Kingpin in the world. I don't think
so fucking good.
And I hope to see more of him. And we could talk so much about like what we love about the show, but like I want to give you time about talking about like if you think this is going to continue on.
So I know a lot of people have suggested that it's going to continue on Disney Plus, and if they did, I'd actually be quite upset, because Disney Plus has really set a really hard line in the sand, saying that it's all going to be PG-13 content. And I had almost expected them to let both Daredevil and Punisher continue on Netflix so that they could continue doing the level of subject matter that they've been tackling thus far. And because, if you wanted to do Luke Cage and Iron Fist, the Heroes for Hire, you could effectively do a PG-13 Heroes for Hire. It'd be fun.
I agree.
And if that were on Disney Plus, I'd be totally fine with that. I almost think, because they're slowly running out of OG Avengers characters. I mean, I have a big hunch that, I'm definitely not the only one. I think in Avengers 4, Captain America dies. I think Chris Evans is gone. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. will be in the forefront. I think he'll stay alive. If you ask me, I think the smart move would be to kill off Samuel L. Jackson, because love him to death, but I think his appeal is definitely starting to decline. I don't think his face is going to effectively sell crazy amounts of tickets to Captain Marvel, for example, or like his face would have sold earlier on. I think effectively you make Tony Stark the new head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he becomes the new cameo character, because I mean, if you want to make more Iron Man, that's cool. Do it right, because Iron Man 3 fucking sucked. But like, you effectively make him that character. You now have two of your biggest, actually, I would even argue say your two biggest characters of the Avengers gone. I think we get a Daredevil movie, and I think he joins the Avengers now, because I think his popularity is high enough. I mean, although, I will say, obviously, they've come out with the numbers on how the ratings for Daredevil have gone down in terms of like viewership when it first drops. But I feel like when it comes to Netflix, not a lot of people kind of go out of their way to check it out when it first releases, at least not nearly as much as they do, because we've kind of been like the idea's kind of been neutralized. You know what I mean? It's not as big of a hype factor as it used to be, where you finish the show within the first weekend that it comes out anymore. Now you're like, it's all
Right.
there. It's all there now.
At your leisure, more or less. And
Right.
see, I like a lot of what you had said, and I don't want to cut you off. Sorry, did I cut you off there?
No, it's good, man. All I was saying was that I think that Daredevil is popular enough to join the ranks with the Avengers. I think that
I agree.
and it'd be a smart move for them, because I know Marvel is very much about representation, and we haven't, like, they haven't really shown Hawkeye's disability, because Hawkeye is partially deaf. I don't know if you know this, but they haven't really shown that to any extent. You now have a blind man on the Avengers, so there's a tick mark for representation. He's also a character that a lot of people I knew a lot of people when the first season of Daredevil came out that watched Daredevil that knew nothing about comics, that knew nothing about Daredevil, that just fucking loved the show. And that's what brought me back into the character. So you're going to have a lot of people going into this that are Daredevil fans. I mean, everybody goes to see the Avengers anyways, but it definitely won't hurt. And to be honest, the quality of Daredevil, both in or not both, in pretty much all of its components, the cinematography, the cast, the writing, the direction, it's all movie level quality. So it's not like these actors are going to be, blown away by working in that kind of environment. I would be, and not to mention, you get to right the wrongs of the 2003 Daredevil movie with another movie. I think it makes a lot of sense. This is a great time to start, doing what you got to do, pushing out the characters you need to push out due to contracts, due to the narrative that you have planned out or whatever. And not only do you get a new face on the Avengers, but it's also a character that and an actor that people are familiar with.
So I agree with you. He is very much popular enough to be on there. And my question for you is that what you want, or is that what you think is going to happen?
I think it's plausible. I would say there's about a 40% chance that it actually happens, because I couldn't tell you exactly what happens, but I feel like it almost makes sense, because they've come out and explicitly said, whether or not it's just corporate jargon or not, but they've come out and said that they have plans for Daredevil. I don't think they would put it on Disney Plus, because for me, Daredevil is R-rated. I don't think you can do that PG-13. All the people that say that you don't require grotesque this or sexual that or bad language, no, it's not required, but it's definitely an added component, because it takes something that, and we've talked about this at length, that a lot of people refer to as childish, and provide a very mature context for. So I feel like it would make a lot of sense. I would love to see it. I think that all of the actors would be more than capable in starring on the silver screen. It just makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. But I disagree. I agree with all of the capabilities of the actors. They're wonderful. I mean, Charlie Cox was great in Stardust, and we could go on. Vincent D'Onofrio was in The Cell. I mean, so many of those actors and actresses are extremely capable of doing what they need to do. But in the direction that I see that Marvel is going, with things more cosmic than anything else, I feel like Daredevil would be way more of a fish out of water. Now, you could say that with Batman when it comes to going into space and everything. My personal opinion, I freaking hate that about Batman. I hate the whole thing that he puts on an astronaut suit and go into space. That's my personal preference. I'm talking to a Batman specialist over here. Might have, but like, you have my permission to be offended, because I think it's stupid. It's so dumb for someone as competent and grounded as Batman is to go into space, I feel like that's the same thing as saying that about Daredevil. I mean, we're going to be bringing in Skrulls, the Eternals. We're going to be bringing in more Guardians of the Galaxy with freaking, I can't remember his name. I forgot his name. Adam Warlock, and then possibly the Silver Surfer. I mean, everything is going cosmic, and I just feel like it doesn't fit for Daredevil. And so my personal opinion is that I don't think they're going to be doing anything with him anytime soon. I mean, we have 10 more years. Lord help us. We have 10 more years of Marvel movies. And there's a lot. That's a lot of space to do something. That could be 3 sagas in itself. We could do Annihilation within the first 3 years, and the next 3 years bring something else, and then end everything off with a whole freaking noir sort of feeling. And when it comes to X-Men, I don't think any of those are going to be coming in anytime soon. But I think that Disney has their own plans with the X-Men, and that's where I feel like Daredevil would be able to fit in really well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Well, in terms of, I think that more than likely they're going to integrate Daredevil somewhere with the X-Men. I don't think the X-Men are going to show up on screen for another 5 years.
I agree with that.
It's gonna take a while, because even though the deal isn't completely done, like, for those of you that that don't know, the narrative that the deal was done has been spun about 5 times over the course of the last year. Yes, they've accepted the offer. Yes, the shareholders have accepted at least 2 other offers before now, and we're a lot farther than we were before. But it also has to go through what government organization is it?
Oh, I don't know. I am not a political man.
It's not the FCC. It's something like that. But they actually have to make sure and like go through and find this entire deal constitutional, because otherwise Disney could have a majority share on the entertainment, on like the sphere of entertainment. Because if you look at, I think 95% of all media in the world was governed by like 6 companies, and now it's 4. Because Warner Brothers was purchased by like AT&T or something like that, and then Fox's entertainment was just purchased by Disney. So that gives Disney a massive, because they already had a massive shareholder, and now they have another one of those, literally 1/6, another 1/6 of the entire entertainment industry. Yeah, Comic Man Jake just clarified. Yeah, AT&T.
Yeah, so, AT&T for sure. Like, I mean, if you want to talk about kingpin in the world, that's Disney right now.
Disney. It's just fucking Vincent D'Onofrio with the Disney World
with the ears.
Can somebody make that?
Dude, that's gotta be a new meme. Somebody hurry and Photoshop that up.
Oh my God. Is anybody in the chat go to the Photoshop? Tweet me at DarkKnightNat25 and at NerdyBlurbTV. We want to see this meme.
Do it.
But yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that this is going to go through, but it's certainly, like, point being, it's going to take quite a while.
Well, the thing is, I feel like a lot of people think that the entire reasoning for Disney to grab Fox's entertainment line is solely for the X-Men to join the MCU, and that is just absolutely false. Yeah. I mean, like, for Disney, that is an opportunity. I'm not going to say that it's never going to happen. I personally feel like it's either never going to happen or not going to happen for a long time. But the entire reason why they did it is so that they can have all of the content for streaming purposes. Like, they have everything now. Like, they have not only all of the Marvel properties other than Sony and Universal's I don't know, copyrights on the Hulk, as well as Spider-Man yet, but like, they have everything else plus everything, and like, they have Fox Searchlight, they have 20th Century's Fox, they have so many other of those independently owned studios that of titles that they've already made and will be making and will be releasing soon, all to be here on their own Disney Plus streaming service. I mean, that is a kingpin in itself. And and when we talk about the MCU, that is just like a small appendage to it, and that's a whole different topic. But that's the reason why, like, I thought it would be interesting to talk about today, because in my personal opinion, I really honestly think that they are done with the Charlie Cox and with the Vincent D'Onofrio.
God, don't tell me that. Don't tell
Possibly
me.
Sony will pick up Vincent D'Onofrio. I think that will happen. That would be really cool.
Oh, it's for a
for
Spider-Man
Sony.
movie?
Yeah, for a Spider-Man Venom movie.
I'd be
Like,
okay. I mean, I don't
right?
know if we're gonna get Spider-Man and Venom shared together.
Maybe.
Because like they and the biggest indicator to that, you know, just to go over briefly in Venom, they like ended up calling it like the Daily Planet, like the Daily Globe or something like they overtly went out of the way to not call it the Daily Planet. So
Right. Well, I mean, they're in freaking San Francisco.
well, no, because they'd mentioned Eddie Brock's time in New York, and he had said that he worked for the Daily Globe and not the Daily Planet. So
that movie is a nightmare in my opinion. But
yeah. Well, I mean, we could probably have a whole nother conversation about Venom.
Videos coming up real soon on my channel about that if you guys want to check it out.
Go watch it, boys. But no, like what you were saying. So, are you concrete on like if we see Charlie Cox or just Daredevil in general again? Are you concrete that it's not going to happen until we get X-Men?
So repeat the. So let me. I didn't quite follow.
Are you? So you had said that you think that the next time we get Daredevil is once the MCU introduces the X-Men as a part of the shared universe. Are you concrete? Is that like is that your final answer? Do you think that is more than likely the next time we see Daredevil?
That's why I was confused, because I'm way more set on Sony. Way more set on Sony using not only like when it comes to Daredevil, I'm sorry to break it to you, man. I really honestly think that we're done with Daredevil. I think we're done with especially Charlie Cox. I don't think we're ever seeing Charlie Cox ever again continuing Daredevil, which is fine by me. And I understand that that's why you wanted to talk about it with me, because I'm glad that it's done. And I am only sad about one thing, and that is to see what other kind of reach can the Kingpin have. And I saw an interview with Vincent D'Onofrio talking about Sony and possibly a Spider-Man collaboration. I don't know what it was, and it's probably a rumor, and actors say whatever the freak they want nowadays. I mean, look at Mark Ruffalo. Now he doesn't have a job. But like
I feel like that's gotta be, but I feel like that's gotta be like some sort of spin. Like there's no way they legitimately fired him.
Oh, dude, he's gone. He is gone.
Yeah, but how do they like? Are they just gonna have a third Hulk in the same universe?
Okay, so I'm gonna do another shameless plug for somebody else. Go check out my man, The Stuff of Legend YouTube channel. He literally gives the facts, and he dissected everything when it comes to Mark Ruffalo. That dude is gone, bro. Like I'm pretty sure they would, because they're already done with filming. And I'm pretty sure they were just done with like the Hulk and maybe loose ends here and there, like maybe possibly another Hulk movie or whatever. But like, first off, the Hulk is a mess with Universal. And two, not everybody's on board with the Hulk. And three, Mark Ruffalo like made a mistake. Let's get rid of him because they don't need him anymore. Go check out the Stuff of Legend YouTube channel. He is the man, and he actually talks about nerd culture journalism better than all these other freaking posers out there.
Yeah, no, real quick, somebody commenting, Jake, he was like, yeah, the Daily Planet is DC, bro. Yeah, I meant to say the Daily Bugle before someone watches this later and like choose my eyes. I was like, you don't read my picture books. I promise I read picture books. Don't worry. But yeah, so I meant to say the Daily Bugle. But no, I don't know, because I feel like usually when Disney makes that sort of decision, they don't, like, the directors have been really, really casual about it and mentioned it on a number of interviews and like joked about it. I don't know. It feels off to me because Disney, when they make those sort of decisions, it's like swift and they try to bring it as under the table as possible. Obviously it's Disney, so it's never going to be under the table, but like that, it feels too casual to me.
I agree. I
there's
agreed. There was a time where I agree with you, but like, there's been so many sources telling that the Russo brothers they're just done, and they're not even kidding about it. Like, they're just talking about it in bars with freaking anyone, and it's like, that's fine. Like, whatever. Mark Ruffalo, like, I liked him and everything, but like, his time is probably done. Like, so many of the Avengers are probably done, and that's why I mention, like, the whole fact that, I mean, it's a good thing that it's done. Like, freaking Mark Ruffalo, what else is Mark Ruffalo gonna give us? Like, you
no.
really think Mark Ruffalo, the guy who starred in an Academy Award winning Best Picture movie Spotlight, is gonna hang around in a Marvel role? No, this guy wants to do more things, and he said that before, and I'm sure he said that he's gone, but like, he's going to be just fine, because anybody's going to want to pick him up because he's a phenomenal actor. And so is Charlie Cox. He is going to be fine after this too. I personally don't think that he's coming back. If he does, in my personal opinion, if the Daredevil ever comes back, I think that he will go to the X-Men. I think it makes sense, or at least clash with them. I mean, the second season of Daredevil was really great because they showed the Punisher when it comes to one end of the spectrum of morality, and Daredevil when it comes to the sense of realism and compassion and justice. And I feel like they could do very similar overtones with that in X-Men when it deals with I mean, freaking anyone. I mean, take your pick, Cyclops or Wolverine, if they want to throw him in there. I think possibly, if we ever see him 10 years from now, that's probably what will happen.
Do you think, what do you think? Give me a percentage, an over under percentage. Do you think Daredevil pops up at all in the Punisher season 2?
No, I do not.
Absolutely 0%.
Yeah, 0%. I mean, who am I? I'm some schmuck from Utah talking on Google Hangouts, you know? like I have no idea. The reason why I think that is because it's a business. I mean, freaking Netflix, Disney, Marvel, they're all a business, and everyone's got contracts, and everybody has to work with each other, and just like, they're done. They're done from Netflix. Like,
I think it
Netflix
would be smart
will
though.
not have them anymore.
I think it would be so smart on their behalf because, well, in the comic books, Frank Castle and Daredevil and Matt Murdock do have a relationship in the comics. And I think,
Mhm.
A, you bring in the comic book fans. B, you bring in, the audience that you had for Daredevil. Most of them are probably watching Punisher, but there's probably a share of them who are not. And, they see the headline from CBR on the internet, Daredevil makes an appearance in Punisher. Everybody tunes into the Punisher. I mean, whether or not, the Punisher being on Netflix is going to be, for an extended period of time, which it probably won't be, but it still brings in views, which also means money. So I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that there's a maybe a 30 to 40% chance that
And I agree with you. The thing is, I'm not saying that it would be a stupid idea for them
yeah.
to do that. I think it's more of a sense of that it's just not legally possible anymore. It's just, I think, wrapping, like, coming full circle to what we were talking about earlier about Batman, Christopher Nolan's Batman, the Dark Knight saga is a perfect series.
Mhm.
Daredevil, different commodities, different associations, different studios. Even it's a TV show, different mediums. Perfect TV show. When they did Breaking Bad, they wrote all of the seasons, even before. I mean, Vince Gillian wrote everything before they even considered whipping out a camera. They wrote season 1 to season 5, every single episode, and they stuck to it. And here we are with Daredevil, 3 seasons, a perfect, and a near perfect. If it didn't have that stupid doctor scene with Bullseye at the end, it would have been freaking perfect. But
I thought that was fine.
it was cool, but it's just like in my eyes, and I've mentioned this to you before, in my eyes, you need to give a good closure for fans to let them think whatever they want, but like, you need to say goodbye to things, because I like being able to have the time to watch these seasons later again to rewatch them. But if I'm 9 seasons balls deep, like, I'm not gonna freaking have time. I have a full-time job. I'm trying to do a YouTube thing, and I have a wife and a daughter. And there's no freaking way I'm gonna do that when Fargo season 4 is gonna be coming out and freaking like Better Call Saul's on, you know? Like, I'm not gonna do that. And that's why I'm so glad that it's done, because we can respect it. I mean, there's something that I hold very very sacred to myself, and that's the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I hardly ever watch those. It's almost like it has to become a ritual for me. Like, I light candles and everything, and like make dinner and watch it because it's that important to me. And that's how I feel about Daredevil. And it would be tainted if it was just a gross over interpretation of that. That's why I'm glad to see it gone, because it ended on such a high note, just like The Dark Knight did.
So for me, I think that they included I mean, would you argue in saying that the scene with Bullseye getting his spine repaired and the adamantium like implant, would you disagree in saying that was a cliffhanger?
Oh no, because
Okay.
I don't disagree at all, because that's Netflix, and that's Loeb like doing his own thing.
Oh
and
yeah.
and
I
and
mean,
freaking executives, they could care less about those ideals.
well, it's like, for those of you who don't know, Jeff Loeb is literally known as the whodunit man of comics. So the fact that he's producing a
So
crime
true.
noir Netflix series, you know, it makes sense. But I mean, I'm pretty sure they finished filming Daredevil season 3 soon after like Defenders came out.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, I don't think they thought that this was getting canceled by the time
No, I agree with you.
I can almost guarantee that they have a season 4 written. Like, it's on paper. It's already done.
Possibly.
So
I think they knew that the merger was coming, though, and I think with that merger comes, I mean, because Disney has been pulling all of their titles off slowly, one by one, all of their titles off of every streaming service there is. They've been leaving like really huge titles like Thor Ragnarok or like Moana or whatever, you know. They leave those there because it brings in business. But come when they cut the ribbon on that, that is all gone. All of our Disney content is going to be gone from Netflix, and that is why they're slowly just picking it all off. And I think we just hit the moment where Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage got it.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's a really painstaking situation. You know, the whole Daredevil being canceled. I want to see more, only because I feel like there's more story to be told. I think there's a lot more story to be told. I can see where you're coming from when it comes to kind of preserving the legacy of Daredevil and ensuring that, you know, we end on such a great note. You know what I mean? Like that scene where Matt, Foggy, and Karen all finally sit down together and they're like, let's do this. Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige. You know what I mean? Like, that was such a satisfying ending, because from Daredevil season 1, the rocky relationship between the three of them has been constant, and we finally get a little bit of resolution to that, right? They all know Matt's Daredevil. They're ready to do this together. Cool. I think there's a lot more story to be told. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I just don't want to give this up, because I think the casting is perfect. I think all of the main cast is absolutely perfect. I think a lot of the peripheral cast is perfect, and I think the writing's spectacular. I think it's just so good. It's so freaking good.
It
And
really is.
I hunger for more, man. You know what I mean? I want more. So I hope there's a future for Daredevil somewhere, and I hope it's still with Charlie Cox. I don't know how old he is. Is he in his 30s or 40s? Do you know?
I don't know. I feel like he's pretty young. I feel like he seems pretty young.
I hope we, you know, 5, 6, 7 years from now, we're in a world where Charlie Cox as Daredevil still exists, and Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin still exists, and whoever the hell the guy that plays Foggy Nelson is still Foggy Nelson still exists. You know, but like in closing, for you, Ryan, if you had to summarize your thoughts on Daredevil season 3, well, like if you had to bring it all together, what would it be?
I'm gonna bring up something that I've already brought up before, and that is Lord of the Rings. It is a hard thing to say goodbye to Frodo when he gets on to the boat to leave Middle Earth, but you know he needs to do it. In my opinion, the way that they ended it, whether they had plans for it or not, for a season 4 or whatever, I'm glad that they didn't have an opportunity to rush anything else, because in my eyes, it's a freaking masterpiece. Daredevil 1 through 3. And I'm glad that I can look back at it and compare that, a TV show, to the Dark Knight saga, because I mean so many people wanted to see a Dark Knight 4, and I thought, no man, like just let him be. And that's how I feel in the end. Is my feelings are, let Matt Murdock be with his family, let him be who he's tried to be and who people need him to be, and that is the attorney in Hell's Kitchen, who serves justice the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I respect it. I agree in some ways. Um, the other part of me is far too selfish. I think there's a lot more Daredevil story to be told. You know, I think there's a world where Matt Murdock goes for mayor and Foggy Nelson becomes assistant DA, and you know, there's a lot of great story left to tell. And that's not to be, you know, it's not to be said that you know there wasn't a lot more great story for Christopher Nolan to tell in the Batman universe. But he, you know, he did his time. He wrapped up his narrative. I think there's more for Daredevil. Um, I think that you know we finally got to the season where we truly have the man without fear. Daredevil is finally the man without fear.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot you can do with that. So if I had to summarize my thoughts on Daredevil season 3, I think that it is the perfect character study of Matt Murdock. You know, it is his rise and fall. It is his collapse in his faith. I think that, and again, I mentioned this earlier in the live stream where I had said, what is Matt Murdock without his faith? Because through all 3 seasons, through the last 4 years that's been on, his faith was the most consistent thing. So what happens when he doubts it? And he doesn't just doubt it, he throws it in the trash, spits on it, lights it on fire, and tries to find something new. And ultimately, and the thing is, he transitions a lot in this season. He goes from sad and decrepit, he becomes hopeful. He loses hope again. He effectively tries to kill himself. Not only killing Matt Murdock, but killing Daredevil. He wants to kill every part of himself. No longer is he just trying to separate the two. He finds his purpose again, right? He realizes that he doesn't need God or divine intervention to protect people, because that is inherently part of who he is. And finding that in the character, and finding that you know, for him, there's always again the discussion of Batman versus Bruce Wayne, and it is that Matt Murdock and Daredevil are the same person. There is no separation there, and it's learning to acknowledge that. And I think that by the end of this season, Matt Murdock has learned to acknowledge that he isn't the man without fear strictly because he wants to defy death. He is the man without fear because he's not afraid to die, because he knows he's serving a bigger purpose, whether or not it's religious or something else. I would say it's more on a humanitarian level, because I feel like at the end of season 3, we leave off his religious stance, you know, like fairly ambiguous. I think he's found solace in the fact that his mission to serve justice is no longer divine intervention. But I would like to explore that. That's something that I think that we can still touch upon. And I think that there's plenty more that we can do with him, that we can do with the rest of the cast. Whether or not Vincent D'Onofrio is any longer a staple, or, you know, they do something, you know, they give us some more story without him, and then they bring him back for a surprise, whatever you got to do. I think that there's a lot more story to tell with that, because we finally got Matt Murdock, the one that we know and love, right? We've gone through the ups and downs. We've kicked him down, literally, spit on his face, burnt him, shot him, and he now comes out the flame as the man without fear. We finally have Daredevil. where is he going to go from here? How can you challenge him? Because he's literally been through hell now, and I would love to explore that. Whether or not we do, you know, I feel like I can find the same level of solace that you found in knowing that we ended off great. Every bit of this journey has been great. You know, for a long time, I had a fairly negative opinion on. My first reaction to season 2 wasn't the most positive, but now that I've rewatched it, I've gained a whole new appreciation for it because again, it's not just basal reaction. But the thing is, Daredevil does a great job not only crafting this awesome narrative and this awesome plot to move these to use these characters as chess pieces. We get to know every single piece of the board. You know what I mean? All of these characters are important, and all of them have very relevant studies. And you know, this season, if I had to give what this season or just give like a one sentence statement about what this season was, it was a triumph for Matt Murdock. Because the ending for me was really unconventional. He physically beat the living piss out of the bad guy, but that's not what it was about. This was a triumph in his character and becoming just becoming something that he can carry forth and not doubt anymore. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I'm so glad that not only do we have this, but I think in the spirit of a comic book character is that his story continues to live on no matter what. Just like this is just like any other run of a comic book series that we took a part of, and we can continue it in our own mind through the comic books and the stories that he has in the past or that he continues to make in the future, and hopefully maybe one day see it on the screen again.
No, yeah, I agree. You know, it's been an awesome time chatting Daredevil with you. You know, me and my big mouth, I could probably keep going for another hour per
Why do I feel
usual.
like we're gonna start crying any minute now?
No, you know, if anybody watching this hasn't seen Daredevil season 3, I more than suggest you watch it. If you just happen to stumble upon this and for some reason YouTube auto plays this video at the end of another one, go watch Daredevil. It's phenomenal. You could go into this knowing nothing about the character and walk out having a fundamental understanding. And what's great is they use not entirely different, but they use different methods to eventually kind of churn out the same character that we have in the comic books. You know, that's the beauty about this sort of adaptation in cinema, right? Because we get the character that we know and love at the end, but almost by totally unique means. And for those of you that haven't yet, make sure you guys go check out Nerdy Blurb, because one of the things that they do is examine characters like this and stories like this, but frame it using cinema. And they use they look at that from a totally different perspective than someone like me would. You know, I'm all for the comic book, and I'm all for the original source material. But what's cool is that those guys over there will take this stuff and frame it in a totally different way. And that's one of the reasons why I love having conversations with Ryan. We talk on, over internet and messaging all the time. And, we have two very different perspectives oftentimes, but neither one is less valid. So, man, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it, dude. Like it's always like it's always like a freaking great opportunity and privilege to be able to talk to you about this stuff, especially if it has to do with your channel. So glad that I actually get the opportunity to be on your channel and to have you be on ours. If you guys have checked out our channel or haven't yet, go check out the one where DarkKnightNation and I talk about comic books and see how he gives me the perspective of comic books, because I'm quite new to it, and he gave me a great perspective on it.
Yeah, no, it's and one of the things that I can't stress to you guys enough is that it's really easy to argue about things, and it's really difficult to just have discourse and be civil. And one of the things I love about talking to Ryan here is that we've had a lot of disagreements when it comes to content or the thought process or where things should go. But ultimately, whether or not one of us persuades the other person, we can agree to disagree. And I encourage you guys, when you talk about these things, to take a step back and to kind of not let those base emotions take the best of you, because it's easy to do that, right? Because we get really passionate about these characters and about these stories, and you know how other people handle them. But just knowing that your perspective isn't the end all be all is really important. So make sure when you guys, you know, carry on that level of conversation, you do it, you know, with etiquette and with proper discourse. But you know, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Ryan, and really glad to finally have you on the channel. We'll definitely have to link up and do more stuff in the future. But you know, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching live. Thank you to those of you who are watching this later. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely make sure to leave a like on the video so that we know that you dig this type of conversation and we can have Ryan back on more often. And of course, subscribe to my channel down below, that big sexy subscribe button for more comic book and geekery related content. And don't forget to click that link in the description below. If you're watching this later, there will be some sort of annotation on the screen to go to his channel if you're too lazy to go to the comments, but you should definitely go check that out in the description. Find Nerdy Blurb, watch the Shug Show, let them know Dark Knight Nation sent you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Ryan, thanks again, man.
Dude, thank you so much.
And this is going to be Dark Knight Nation and Ryan from Nerdy Blurb TV signing out. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Thanks for watching.